pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you can see, Jeff, should be running the meeting tonight, is not here. So I guess, because I've been having him do it since I've been not feeling well, so I guess it's back to me. Typically, we end up going over the meeting minutes. I wasn't prepared to make copies for everybody, so.
Read them then.
You want me to read them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Unless the scribe has got them on the thing to read.
I don't care.
I've got them here.
Okay.
It was a call to order at 6:04 p.m. We did the Pledge of Allegiance. Opening on the committee, we had Elizabeth Toth has submitted an interest form to join the advisory committee. Elizabeth introduced herself, explained her financial experience, minor in accounting, major in management information systems. Motion by Will Spring to appoint Elizabeth as a member of the advisory committee, and seconded by Julie Farrell. Elizabeth requested being directed to some training information, which several folks pointed out to her where it was available, and then the vote was unanimous by all members of the advisory committee and approved at 6:40 p.m. We approved the minutes from the last meeting. Motion was by Will to accept the minutes, seconded by Bob May. And Julie abstained because she had not attended that meeting, and the motion was approved at 6:10 p.m. Budget report, budget versus actual. There was a motion by Will Spring to email the accountant and the interim administrator requesting the advisory committee access to all financial records with the level of detail necessary to review the town expenses per Article 4, Section 5 of the town bylaws. There was discussion. There is no reason not to provide the same detail that was provided until this year. The town has the same financial systems and has more accounting resources, should be able to provide the proper records. Also, a request, there was going to be a request, a copy of the town meeting warrant article and vote that approved the change to the financial reports. So the motion, I don't have who seconded. I don't have who seconded that motion, but it was approved unanimously. Then there was another motion by Will for the vice chair to email the accountant the following questions. And it was seconded by Julie. The questions included: where did the money come from for the fire department grant expense? Why is the Highway Improvement Fund, Chapter 90, formatted as a negative allocation? And why is the emergency management grant expense over budget by $3,812.02? Motion was approved by all members at 6:30 p.m. Special town meeting. There was a motion by Will Spring that we scheduled the pre-town meeting November 1st, 2017 at 7 p.m. in this conference room. Notice will be posted in the Garden News on October 28th. It was seconded by Bob May, and the motion was approved by all members at 6:50 p.m. There was also a motion by Julie for the vice chair to request the chairman of the Board of Selectmen and to copy the Board of Selectmen members and the town administrator to speak about the budget versus actual during the public presentation of the FY17 audit. Motion was seconded by Bev, and motion was approved by all at 7:10 p.m. Regarding the response from the DOR DLS. The Templeton Advisory Committee expressed its concern about the lack of detail in the financial reporting to the DLS. They responded that it is a local decision and that we should take it up directly with the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen. Under old business and open issues, motion by Paul Grubb to request time on the 10/23 Board of Selectmen agenda to present the Templeton Advisory Committee roles and responsibilities. Paul will email the request to the Board of Selectmen Chair, copy the town administrator, the Board of Selectmen members, and the Advisory Committee members. Motion was seconded by Bob May, and the motion was approved by all at 7:25 PM. Under new business, talked about the 10/21 training in the Franklin Tri-County High School. It included some subject matters such as budgeting 101 for new members, how to blog, tweet, and share while following open meeting bylaws. The cost was $45 for new members, $55 for existing members, and we needed to submit by October 13th, anyone who wished to attend. And then we adjourned at 8:02 PM.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as read.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as read.
And I'll second it. I got sworn in today, so I can do this. So, I'll second it.
I had already presumed that you got sworn in.
Yeah, well, I did.
That's good to know. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. I don't know if I should call you Cricket or Liz.
Cricket, Liz, whatever works for you.
Okay, Cricket,
That works.
Bev,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. I think the next thing he had on the agenda was, and it was, I sent this out, it was from another community about policy on one-time revenues for everybody to take a look at and to have a discussion.
What date did you send it out? I don't think I saw it.
You're gonna ask me what date?
No.
I just, I got it, but I didn't, like I said, same thing.
Okay.
I didn't copy because
Does everybody need a copy, or?
Okay, wait a minute.
Because we can make a copy if,
Okay, I found it. It was sent to us October 11th.
okay.
You need a copy, honey?
No, I'm,
If I can download it, I'll be
no,
all
I
right.
got it. I got it, right here.
The ship's coming in and.
Did you want me to take and read this, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Advisory Committee Policy on One-Time Revenues. Is the primary goal of the Templeton Advisory Committee to ensure that the budgets are fiscally responsible, sustainable. Unfortunately, the recent trend has been towards a growing budget gap. A 2009 Massachusetts Department of Revenue audit of the town's finances pointed out a number of root causes which we seek to address in order to move towards a sustainable, long-term financial outlook for the community. The largest problem area has been the trend of increasing reliance on one-time revenue to pay for the reoccurrence operating budget. These one-time revenues have included transfers from stabilization, transfer from enterprise funds, sale of assets, state special pothole appropriation, and department turnbacks unexpended money from prior operating budgets. When these one-time sources of revenue were applied to reoccurring operating budgets increased beyond the amount of reoccurring revenue. This required that the leaner budgets be adopted, which in turn the size of the turnbacks. The effort snowballed until the gap was critical. The practice has also placed Templeton in a situation where our cash reserves are dangerously low. Any unexpected expense could not be absorbed without borrowing. A responsible cash reserve in the stabilization fund also improves the town's ability to borrow money at a favorable rate and allows it to self-insure for a number of unexpected occurrences, allowing it to carry higher insurance deductibles and consequently lower insurance premiums. To stabilize the budget, the advisory committee unanimously recommends the following policies. One-time revenue should only be applied to capital improvements, property acquisition, contributions to stabilization, and single-year casualties. Budget estimates in the spring town meeting should be considered to be fully funded. As a general rule, should be no supplemental appropriation to department operating budgets in the fall town meeting. Departmental turnbacks available in the fall town meeting should be deposited into stabilization fund or applied to single-year payments of capital improvements. These purchases should not take on debt schedules that require future appropriations beyond what can be funded from recurring revenue streams. It is in nobody's best interest to grow budgets at an unsustained rate. As we have seen, failure to maintain this financial discipline will quickly lead to painful decisions. Even by adhering to these recommendations, the rate of increase in some expenditures categories will place strains on future budgets. But Templeton will be in a better position to meet these changes if it maintains a disciplined approach to the budget process.
Can I say something?
Sure.
As you all know, I've looked into the history of our financial status for this town. And what year was it that the DOR wrote us and told us not to?
2009.
2009, okay. In 1992, let me see, I lost my place. All right, in 1992, 2000, that was the annual town meeting report.
Yep.
Advisory Board Chairman Dan Keeney his report offered the following observations. As a town, we need to change the practice of relying upon uncertain sources of income, in parentheses, additional state lottery receipts. That's one of those they were using at that time, for example, to routinely fund reoccurring expense for the operating budgets. The town needs to get better at midterm and long-term planning. Failure to do so will almost guarantee continued fiscal emergencies. Each year without planning, and after all of the money is spent, few programs are adequately funded and many participants remain dissatisfied. Now, he was a good advisory board person, and he had said this in 2003 also. And I think at one point, the DOR, even way before the report we refer to, they had told them the same thing, to stop doing this, but they never did. So when we looked at this year's budget, I think you'll remember, I brought up the fact that we had been told over and over again not to use sources of income that came from one year. My issue was with the trees.
Yep.
And it looks to me like Mr. Terrazini wouldn't listen to me. If you have a budget the size of ours, and you have to use something as small as cutting a few trees down to balance your budget, the town's in a problem. And what's worse now, he thought there was gonna be $10,000 he got out of that. And I didn't agree with him. And I think I was right, because there's too much wetland where he's gonna cut those trees. So that means this year's budget already has a deficit. So I don't know how you make people understand that they need to stop doing this, because that's another one of the things that continues to get us in trouble.
One of the things, I looked at this other community, and there was a lot of what you were saying about transfer, and I took and looked at the 2009 and what has transpired, and some of those same things were happening. I put some of those things that happened years ago to take and end up making sure that they wouldn't happen in the future. Is to put them into the policy, so that they wouldn't. I mean, the one-time occurrences that we see is just like Bev said, is that they're gonna end up cutting trees. That's $10,000. Well, that's one-time revenue. It shouldn't be used.
That's right.
I mean, transfers from stabilization funds were done before. Transfers from enterprises were done before. Sale of assets, they ended up, if you remember, they sold 252. They ended up putting that into the kitty also.
But see, you end up running out of places to find money.
Yep.
The idea that we're going to keep Scout Hall alive by selling T-shirts, that's sad.
Well, I mean, all of these things occurred in the past.
But they
And what
they
we
don't
need to-
stop.
What we need to do is to take it, end up saying that these things should not happen. And here we are, and this is another community that ran into the same thing, is they had, is in that one area where I ended up saying is about reoccurring for health insurance, et cetera. Some of those things need to be looked at and continued. It's very dangerous to take and end up spending money that you receive only one time, and it's not there for future. And
Or
going back,
Even if he doesn't get the $10,000 this year.
Item number 2 about budgets established for the spring town meeting should be considered fully funded. Well, it wasn't fully funded. They already, and this addresses that particular thing. As a general rule, there should be no supplement appropriations to department operating budgets in the fall town meeting. I mean, that's another thing that you cannot end up keep doing. Those type of practices have to be stopped.
So how did the other community resolve those issues? Were they able to put a policy in place?
They
or
actually,
or bylaw, or what did they?
the advisory committee, or finance committee in this particular case, put this policy, which I took, and I plagiarized most of it, like have been told.
There's
When
nothing
we
wrong
go to
with that.
the Association of Town Finances, plagiarize. There's a lot of, I mean, why invent the wheel?
There's no, if it worked there, and just help educate me here on, if this committee puts a policy in place.
Yeah.
What backing do we have that the policy will be enforceable?
None.
None.
None, all right.
And let me say
Unless
this.
the people agree.
Wait a second. In this community, none. Other communities, when policies are put out by finance committees, advisory, and warrant committees, then they use all 3 of those names for the same type of function. The Board of Selectmen and the administration listens to that. Unfortunately, we don't have that. I mean, there's some things that I'll address later on when we talk about the training as to what we will end up being able to take and ask questions. And it's very interesting that when I got the new schedule for what's happening on this Saturday for training for us, the keynote speaker is the Attorney General.
Oh, my Lord, am I gonna go talk to her?
And, where is it?
I guess because we seem to have difficulty with everybody coming to a reasonable agreement. There's gotta be some way of being able to
See what happened?
encourage
Can I say
cooperation.
something else? To
I
answer
realize
you-
that, I'm trying to be,
To answer you, okay?
there's gotta be a way of encouraging
Some of
it.
this stuff happened in the 90s, okay?
Let me correct that. It's Margaret Hurley, the Assistant Attorney General.
She's good enough, we'll take her.
I mean, I just printed out this, and I thought it said Attorney General. I hadn't read the whole thing.
Okay, so in 1991,
And she's in charge of the Municipal Law Unit. Good person to take and end up being there.
Yes.
so in the 90s, okay? It started off that they called it a fiscal year, another year of financial stress because local aid was 5.1 less than the prior fiscal year of 1990. The town's fiscal year 90s, 554,253 in certified free cash was used to offset the tax rate. They did that all the time. It furnished major support in helping the town get by for the year. As in the prior year, certain maintenance and projects had to be forgiven. So they didn't do any work. At the annual town meeting in 1992, Article 23, on a motion made and seconded, the town voted to authorize the Board of Selectmen to appoint a committee of 5 to study the town manager form of government and to make a report by the next annual town meeting. They passed that one over. So in 1999 to 2000, that's when Dan brought up his issues about using one-time revenues. And then, as we went on to 2003, they were struggling back in 1991. 2003, the town meeting article to reduce the appropriation by $103,321.15 to reduce the operating budget was passed. This budget reduced services due to restrictions in state aid and a failed 2.5 override attempt. So they got a problem with state aid being cut, okay? And then they tried for an override and they didn't pass it. So the advisory committee was concerned that the town had no savings and no plan to accumulate savings. Stabilization funds are near zero and free cash is consumed each year as soon as it becomes available. And annual deficit spending is greater than the funds from new growth. State aid reduced mid-year, February 2003, by $115,737.
Yeah, but I understand.
So if the
all-
state,
that-
but
that-
what I'm saying is that people don't know this.
No.
So what they do is they do the same thing the people before them have done. So we have a
Right.
cycle.
So how do we break the cycle? How do we get,
Well, this is-
how do we get to the point where
I don't
the
know.
town is putting away a nest egg a bit, at least a little bit every year, something, and be able to, fund the services and
Yeah.
fund everything else appropriately, to be able to.
Well, that's a question that we can get into when we get into the warrant stuff a little bit, okay?
But can I add one more thing, Will?
What I wanna end up doing is take and end up seeing everybody's inputs as to what we have here.
Yep.
And this is Rev Zero. is to take and end up having a little discussion now, have everybody go back and maybe mark up some stuff that they want in or should be taken out of here, and we can end up revising this and eventually publish it. If that's what the committee wants to end up doing. That's what I'm suggesting that we might end up entertaining.
So is that a motion? Motion for the, you're the chair today, so can the chair make motion?
Well, the chair can end up bringing it up as a motion, and somebody has to take and end up saying so moved.
Okay.
So moved.
We have a motion and so, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to end up having everybody review this at before the next meeting. And mark it up so we can end up having those discussions and changing what we need to take and end up on this particular policy to be more in line with what we have. This is all encompassing. I figured this would be at least the baseline.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion on this?
The only thing I wanted to add was, just to make a point, okay? Because of all the stuff that was going on, the town lost, in 2003, they lost $115,737 in state aid. They had a 28% reduction they had to lay off the highway department and the police department. They tried an override and that was defeated. They shut off the lights, I remember that. And they went without a coordinator for the first 9 months of 2004.
Well,
2005, one more
Yeah.
minute. The town missed out on Chapter 90 funds due to a failure to comply with conditions of the agreement. They did not receive anticipated $200,000 worth of Chapter 9 funding and a USDA loan reimbursement of $160,000 in 2005. They did not secure the CDBG grant of approximately $800,000 due to technicality in the wording of the grant. So this is what I'm trying to get past. The fact is that we keep doing the same thing.
I understand that, but we're talking about this particular
Yep.
policy. It's try to encompass some of what you're bringing up.
Yep.
And what we need, we have a motion to take and end up having people look at this, mark it up, to take and end up modernizing it to that and go forward with that. That's all good information, Bev, but a lot of that is contained in here about one-time revenues per se.
Because as a result of not doing the right thing, it boomerangs all over the place.
Yeah.
That's why
So we have a motion and a second. We had discussion.
No, we got more
Yes.
discussion over
Yeah.
there.
The only question I had is as I believe the motion was to look at this at our next meeting.
No, looking at it before the meeting, come with a markup for it.
Okay, well, at the next meeting, I'm just wondering, because the 23rd is the workshop, the 1st is our pre-town meeting. I'm just wondering which meeting are we,
It would probably be our next regular meeting,
okay.
which may or may not be, both myself and Jeff were thinking that maybe we should meet on the 25th. But I'll bring that up a little bit later.
Okay.
So if we don't meet on the 25th, there's pre-town, the 1st of November, and then it would be the following time that we would end up discussing. It would be a little later in, unless we schedule another meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Will.
Have a motion and a second. End the discussion. Cricket?
I'm just wondering, on the discussion part, so we go through and we create, long-term, we create the policy,
Yeah.
right? And whatever the final wording of the policy is. And if that doesn't go anywhere, you know, as far as folks decide they don't want to follow it, or for whatever reason, it's not followed.
Yep. There is no penalty if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, there's no penalty.
But at least we
there's
will end up telling the community, we have a policy on one-time revenue, and that it's up to them, that they can end up pushing back on the management of the community.
no- Okay, all right, thank you.
I mean, one way that they can end up doing that is getting it on the town website under advisory committee.
Okay. Thank you, that was it.
Okay?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. On to voting. Cricket.
Okay, yes.
Bev.
Yep.
Paul.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. I'm gonna back up a little bit to, and I'm sure he must have had copies of it, but I don't have copies for everybody, is the budget to actual, and I wanna bring something up on the budget to actual.
Which one?
Well, in this particular case, it's gonna be ours. I looked at our submission to the budget the budget on items. Let me go see if I have the actual budget, the actual document that we had last time. Because I did bring a copy of that also.
Okay, something else.
And we were questioning on ours, employee support, and it had $390. And the reason I was looking at our budget was because we're going to training
Yeah.
this coming Saturday. And I wanted to see where we stood monetarily in order to end up paying for most of the members per se in that account. And when I went to it, I ended up looking at it, and I said, okay, the first one was 130, 151, which is what they have is an overall for personnel, for paying personnel. Well, we're not in that one. So the next one that I went to was the next account number was 130, 51, 110, which has the annual conference, regional conferences, and the dues for the whole thing. And I went, oh, okay. And I went back to it, and that was a question that we had about employee support. This is not employee support, it's basically, it's part of the budget, the expense budget. Went up, and they actually have it listed as employee support. And I went, okay, what do we have for monies in that particular account? Because I started looking at some of the other accounts, and they had a 5,100 account for, 5110 for the selectmen, and they had $9,000, and I'm saying, how can they do this? And I started looking at this just before I came to the meeting. I don't have a lot of information, and I'm saying, there seems to be more to meet the eye, because they consolidated stuff, and we really need to end up spending more time to dig into that.
So are you saying that the title on the
Well,
account is wrong? Or-
the way they've collapsed it and all, they've started calling it different stuff. It doesn't break out like it did in July, and that was the contention as you remember, last year by some of the members, that we couldn't see what some of the folks were getting paid per se, and if they were overspending for basically somebody's salary. Well, if we have salary, it looks like personnel in the selectman's office is $165,000. And I went, okay, they budgeted $110,000 for a town administrator. I did some quick calculations, because then I went and looked at the latest contract is dated the 11th of October for Mr. Terrazini. 2 days a week for $1,250.
That's what they approved.
It comes out to $65,000. So that's under personnel, under his, because I had to actually look in the budget book to take and end up seeing some of the detail. And then I went, wait a second. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the meeting where they introduced the management intern. There is nothing in the budget that they can pay a
I
management
was wondering
intern.
about that. I was wondering about that.
There's no job description. There's no contract, because I looked for a contract, and I'm saying, how can we pay this individual?
Yeah, but who even voted for him? The people didn't vote to hire him.
I understand that, but your board of selectmen and the administrator have gone ahead with that.
What the newspaper said, the Gardner News said that the money for the intern was coming out of, that the combination, when you take the intern's salary and you take
Terrazini's?
Mr. Terrazini's salary together, it would be no more than the $110,000 budgeted, if I understood what the article was
But
saying.
the
So-
budget states it's for the town administrator.
And again, I'm basing this on what.
I think I saw that
What
too.
the article said,
Yeah.
you know, because I wasn't there, but based on what the article said, it sounded like what they were doing is setting up and I missed the gentleman's name that was hired, and that he was gonna be hired full-time as basically the town administrator with Mr. Terrazini mentoring him 16 hours a week. And whatever the title is, I think that's what they were planning on doing based on the
Well,
article.
Mr. Terrazini's contract calls for him to be the town administrator,
The town administrator or the interim town administrator?
appointed as town administrator.
Yeah.
Whereas Carter Terrazini has agreed to accept the
Yeah.
appointment as town administrator. This is in his contract.
He just did that,
Okay.
a couple weeks ago.
And what's his pay there?
He's getting paid $1,250 every week.
So that's
Yeah.
roughly $75 an hour.
On top of that, he gets paid
Surgeon.
he gets paid $30 a week for traveling back and forth to his home. He gets all kinds of money that they can go to all these associations. And there's, let's see, a state, there's $3,000 for cumulative costs for him to go to the MMA Association conference and other conferences.
So, well, is the point here
That there's no
that
budget
there's
for
no
him.
budget, or what was reported in the Gardner News
Yeah.
article correct, that between
This,
the salary for the town administrator and the administrator intern is gonna be covered under the selectmen's labor budget?
right, and it was never budgeted that way. It was just budgeted as town administrator.
Okay, so what's the issue, though? Is it that we didn't, it wasn't broken out?
It wasn't broken out, number one. Number two is that the town has never voted to end up increasing. Usually, when you end up creating a new job description, it goes before town meeting.
Okay, so the new job description for
The management intern,
the management intern, okay.
and there's
So-
no contract for him. So we have no idea what he's getting paid.
Okay, so where is the budgeting contract for the management intern? Why was this never voted on in town meeting? Is that what you're
Right,
saying?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm saying, how did this happen? I mean, I understand that they want the intern, but they never went before the folks. And
They
it's-
never asked anyone.
And then I looked at the special town, the special town meeting warrant, and it's not on there either. I mean, okay, you wanna take it and creating this position, then you should bring it, even at the special town meeting, bring it forth to see if the community wants to take it, end up increasing government.
Well, as I said, I think based on the Gardner News article, it sounded like this was supposed to be a one-year mentoring type process, and then the management intern would be then
He'll fly the
appointed, appointed the, you know, the TA.
I'm only bringing these us as questions, I don't have answers
Yeah,
for it.
no, I fully understand.
I think what is concerning to me
Yeah.
is the fact that it was decided by the select board members that, first of all, that they were gonna pursue the idea of a shared town administrator without any vote or input from any of the other
Yeah.
departments, whether that's the right direction to go in. And you look at a town like Winchendon, who we were going to enter into this partnership with, and they were at least, it went to a special town vote for it, whether or not they wanted to support, a shared.
Well, they were gonna go for vote, but the
But they ended up
selectmen,
not having to, because it got voted down by
Right.
the select board. But it's just a difference in style,
Yeah.
the
But
residents were being, at least had some input to
this is
the
what,
decision.
this is a little bit
Excuse me,
about-
let me
oh,
finish,
excuse me, I'm
please,
sorry.
Beverly.
Yeah, but-
And then the second point is, again, what the idea about having a management intern, where was that ever discussed? And when did we ever get, anybody give any input that that's the right direction to go?
I mean, they originally went for a management intern when they were gonna have Mr. Hickey here to take and fill in the time he would be working for Mr. Hickey, per se, during his time that he would not be here.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, they came up with this particular subset because they didn't wanna continue to go out into the marketplace to get a permanent TA.
But again, where was the budget and where was the contract for,
Right.
Right.
for making that decision,
Where
creating
was
that
the vote?
position, so. Okay.
This is what, some of what we got into Monday night, where they're doing things without going to town meeting vote. They bought Sanders. People in town always was able to vote for whether they wanted to buy something like that. And sometimes the people would say no. So they started doing stuff at special town meeting because no one shows up. But we have people that live out of town, they don't live here anymore. They sleep here, they spend time here on the weekend, but they don't live, they don't work in Gardner, come back home. So it makes it difficult.
Uh-huh.
So this kid, is he gonna be like Mr. Ritter, who has had no authority?
I don't know, there's no contract spelling out what,
And there's no job description either.
there's no what?
I'm asking, there's no job description either.
No.
I would
Well,
presume.
and based on what we have for information, there's $110,000 for salary, but I mean, there's two people here. Do we have health coverage,
Exactly.
benefits, blah, blah, blah?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that ain't
What
even
people wanted was
110,000.
A TA.
Yeah,
Well, believe it or not, the dental is covered under Mr. Terrazini's contract. Vacation time is covered under his, but you don't see that for the other individual.
Isn't he retired?
Yeah, he's
Mr.
retired.
Terrazini's retired.
Right,
And-
I mean,
and
I would
Again,
assume it-
reporting on the Gardner News, and I think I've also heard him actually say this, that he is only allowed to legally work 16 hours a week.
Right, and it
But
says
he's working for another town also. So,
I don't think that's true.
okay, that's what I thought I had heard, that he was also working for another town.
It's like I thought he'd be gone.
Well,
No luck.
I mean,
I'm confused, that's all, I'm
Me
confused.
too.
welcome
So
to the
now
club.
it's like when we would take policemen in, and we would train them And as soon as they got all their training done, they would leave and go to another community. Happened over and over and over.
Things like that you can write into contracts that basically say, we're gonna pay for this,
Here's
and
an
you have to
interesting
stay X
part.
amount of time.
This is section 5.
Yeah.
Section 5.2. Let me read you Mr. Terrazini's thing on the section 5.2. Annually, as part of its goal-setting retreat for the coming fiscal year, the board shall, in conformance with specific criteria to be developed jointly by the board and the town administrator, and in conformance with general accepted best management practice, evaluate the performance of town administrator. Okay? The town of Pepperell, at its discretion, may grant the town administrator an increase in salary based upon a satisfactory performance evaluation and successfully completion of stated goals.
Nice legal document.
Pepperell.
This is this is on the website.
Copy
The
and
town of
paste.
Pepperell.
Copy and paste. It's all over the place in the.
And every contract is supposed to be reviewed by
Legal.
town council.
Yep.
Did he sign it?
Yes, he and the chairman had both signed it.
Why am I not
And the,
surprised?
And Holly Young has notarized it.
Witnessed it.
This is a legal document.
Well,
Yeah.
all her notary means is that she witnessed them signing it.
Signatures.
It doesn't mean anything else beyond that.
Right church, wrong pew.
If they let him go, they're gonna pay him up to $650 to take and end up on a per diem basis to come back and address issues.
Oh, my God. No, they just dug a whole lot deeper.
What seems to be happening in a lot of cases, and we dealt with this again in the meeting the other night, is we have policies, procedures, we have methods and systems that are just not being followed by anyone. They don't even know they exist.
You blow 'em off.
As an example, just quickly here, with capital planning. Every capital item, according to the capital planning bylaw, every capital item that's over $10,000 should come to capital planning first. Capital planning should write the report goes to the Board of Selectmen goes to the town meeting. The way it's been happening, and it seems to be the just assumed way, is they go to the Board of Selectmen for the funds. Anybody who needs anything goes to the Board of Selectmen, so they go to the Board of Selectmen, come back to the capital planning to get the rubber stamp, because it says in the bylaw they need to have it stamped. They get it stamped, and then it goes to the, because it happens the day before you go to, day before you go to the town meeting. That's the only reason for capital planning, is to stamp it, because the bylaw says it has to go there before it goes to the town meeting for appropriation. That is bastardizing the whole system, excuse my, but it is, it's flipping everything around to make it all pointless. There's the benefit of capital planning is eliminated.
Didn't DOR, wasn't that one of the things that was in if I remember
Procurement?
correctly, was in the DOR letter, saying that it needs to go, it needs to go in a certain fashion, and before it can go out for bid and everything else, it needs to, there are steps that, I don't know what the steps are, but there are steps that need to be followed.
Well,
And it sounds like they're not being followed,
That's
so what do we do?
That's
So-
exactly why we had our other only meeting last April, because they needed to get items on to the town meeting that hadn't been brought to capital planning. But what we do is very, simple, is just follow what we have for policy and procedure. The people in charge, which would be the Board of Selectmen or Carter, need to make it known to the department heads in town that they go to capital planning. They don't go to Carter, they don't go to, the Board of Selectmen for capital needs because they don't get them from there. They get them through capital planning. Capital planning brings it forward.
Well,
But it just, when it was brought up the other night, it didn't seem like anybody there was willing to follow it. So,
Yeah, because
just an example. What,
well, it's a very good example, I think, of the situation. And when, and I'm gonna put my business hat on for a minute, when people in the business world don't follow policies, there's some sort of mechanism to be able to try to get people in alignment. And, you know, and there's up to, including firing in the business world, when you work for an employer, non-municipal, non-governmental employer, there is a method to get there. But my questions earlier, I'm really wondering, like, the policies and stuff, whether or not they need to be ingrained in the bylaws. And there is one of the first articles in the town bylaws is that if you don't follow it, that there is a fine that can be imposed.
There should be
It's
a
minimal.
fine,
There
but
is
it's-
minimal, which I don't think has ever been updated. And,
It's never been enforced.
okay, it's never, I don't know, I don't know what the enforcement method is to get there.
Let me give you,
Let me put it bluntly, you know, there needs to be some teeth someplace
We'll
along
find out Saturday.
along the way to be able to say, hey, look,
let me share
I
some discussion that
I don't know
has
what
taken
else to do.
place here some time back. We looked at that particular bylaw and we were thinking about to end up telling somebody that they need to enforce it. Well, the enforcement agency is who? It's either the selectmen or their designated E in other communities. In this particular case, they don't have a designated E, which could be the police force per se, but it's BOS. The question came up, and I'm not sure on how it got to, it went to, let's put it this way, it went to another municipality council. He worked in another council. And the answer is that you would end up having to take the town to court to enforce it as an individual to make it happen. So you actually have to end up taking the selectmen the task through court.
And it costs a lot of money. 'cause
And
we
nobody,
don't have-
Sure it
nobody
does.
has, well, it could be small claims court, and nobody has done that. That's not, in my estimation, and I think from other people, that's not the way to end up trying to get this thing resolved. It's a last resort, so to speak.
But
But
Yeah.
that's the avenue that could be taken.
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody really wants to go to court. I think everybody wants to do the right thing, and it's a matter of how do we get everybody on the same team, going in the same direction, and
It was
working together.
It was pointed out to the selectmen that they're not enforcing the bylaws.
they don't respect bylaws. They don't respect,
Oh.
when I said tradition, oh, well, that's a big joke, tradition. That's what they used to do, tradition. No, that is a law. That is what you are supposed to do. Not going to capital planning, bit them in the butt. When the man said, he looked over the school stuff, did it go to capital planning? Oh my, no, because they weren't gonna send capital planning, the police station, the water tank, and a pumping station, all going at the same time.
Right.
And what capital plan could ever approve that? Because we had no money at that time, we don't have any now.
The
And it's
DOR's
only-
letter.
What we have
It's
overall.
only because of that.
We've got-
What we have overall, Cricket,
Yeah.
and this has been pointed out by a number of members on this committee on social media per se, is that the bylaws haven't been followed. The personal policies that the selectmen have, they have policies, they don't follow those. there's mass general laws that they have overstepped and not followed. What power that we individually, they've been pointed out. Some of them have been corrected. As an example, it said public comment should be on there. Well, all of a sudden, public comment has now been on the agenda for a while. Then there was comments about there's lack of transparency. That went on for quite a while. All of a sudden, in the last month, 2 months, in addition to the agenda, they list most, but not all, of the items that are gonna be discussed at the selectmen's meeting. Why do I say that? Is that we ran into this when we came to a meeting, they had all of the documentation except one, about the salary. That was inadvertently, according to the administrator, it was, he forgot to take and end up putting that on. He ran out and got that, and the only people that got to see where the salaries were going were the selectmen. So where's, the transparency that they talked about disappeared.
I'd like to comment, because I just want to give credit where credit is due on that. Because that was brought up, that was pointed out at the time. And since, and I'll say since, because it's been since 10/16 was when they agreed that anything that was introduced during the meeting would be added to the agenda item. And the items that were added in this past Monday's meeting,
Yep.
there was an item from the Collier Institute that was put on the website the day after. So they appear to be doing what they stated to do and what they promised to do. How long it holds, we don't know, but for right now, it's a
All right,
change.
it's a
And
change, and it seems positive.
But I was
So-
gonna say, I like having the information available.
I do too.
The citizens should see what's going on for their government.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I think we're all in agreement there, and it sounds like for whatever reason, things are moving in the right direction. So we need to, and I realize I'm kind of downplaying this a little bit, but it's because we all have to start somewhere and be able to, you've been on, on this advisory board for a very long time. You've experienced a lot of the frustrations of various members, and we need to start somewhere and try to.
You can't have to, because the town, the people suffer, they have a right to know where their money goes.
Yes, they do. They have a right to know. We've got some authority to ask certain questions and get certain pieces of information. And we need to find a way of working with the select board, and having them and us both all be cooperative and going in the same direction. So how do we work with it?
We're trying to work with the select board.
Yeah.
We created a stabilization policy, which we got on the agenda, and I presented. I asked for about 20 minutes. They cut that down to 10. They did the same thing to Paul on the presentation he's making. They have other entities that they have allowed much longer time, 20, 25 minutes, almost a half hour, to make their presentation. But we presented that, and my words were, we're reaching out to you to end up having a discussion on this. We're presenting it to you for discussion, and the answer was, well, we will review it at the workshop. The only people that weren't invited to the workshop was the advisory committee. These other entities, 4 of them, were all invited to talk about their policies and what was going on in their space.
Yeah, no,
They want us
Yeah.
gone,
well,
and that's sad, because they're required to have an advisory board. And an advisory board should be objective. Because we're objective, they want us gone.
I mean,
You can't have the fox in the chicken coop. It don't work that way.
no, it doesn't, but.
I thought we had reached out to them,
We did, but they are,
well,
and it didn't come to any fruition, so to speak.
I think it's still something, we just gotta keep trying,
Yeah.
that's all we can do, and that's, so they.
Yeah.
you
they've
get the
agreed
white
to-
hat, so they,
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, I know, and I haven't experienced all the
It's
level
okay, I
of
don't
frustration
care.
that you
You know
folks
what?
have, but
They don't
I'm
have
just
to like
saying,
us.
it is, the only solution is, you get two options here, you completely give up, resign, whatever, or you continue to try to work with the other departments and make some progress with them, show that we're willing to cooperate. And-
Keep knocking on the door, and just
Yeah.
keep knocking and knocking and
Yeah,
knocking.
because
and
if we quit.
Eventually, they'll,
That's what we talked about the
Yeah.
last meeting. If we quit, no one's going to be able to do this job. And as long as we're not being unreasonable, and I
Yeah.
don't think we are.
Anyone can be replaced.
That's right. You know what?
Speaking from
That's true.
business experience,
Oh, yeah,
nobody is.
that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, they can very easily replace us, so,
Yeah.
our options right now are continue working forward. Try to make some progress, that's all we can, that's my recommendation, so.
Well, let me just rein this in. We were talking about the BVA and where we are as far as our ability to take and pay for the training.
Yeah, so what's the scoop?
There is between the annual town meeting and the regional town meeting, and I think we can use both of those to pay for people's things. We have three people, I think three people that are eligible to get the new people, cost is Bob, yourself, Paul's not going, and Bev. So the other three folks that would be going would have to end up, it would be $55. And there's only enough money for one person, and there's $10 left over in that whole account as far as that goes.
Why don't we take the whole amount and split it by the people that are going? Because I'm
Well,
not
I
gonna, I'm
mean-
not gonna let somebody pay for mine. That's not fair. I would just as soon
And-
take it and
Well,
split it.
I'm just saying, we
Get
have
what you can out of
we
the
have a
town,
total of
split the
$210. The thing of it is that everybody has to get a receipt the day of the training. We have to, each individually have to actually put in against that receipt.
Yeah, I see. All right. Never gonna be rich anyway.
So I mean, I don't know how to take and break it up
No.
in order to take and end up getting it equally across.
Well, if I get reimbursed, I'll give some money to the people that had to pay the
Oh,
whole
well.
deal.
yeah, well,
So I mean, that was one of the things that, I mean, was it unforeseen that we would end up having that many people on the committee wanting to go this year? Yes. Could we go to the emergency reserve? It was unbudgeted.
I don't have a problem paying the full 55.
Pardon me?
I said, I don't have a problem paying the full 55
Well,
to go.
the three of us that went last year, Julie, myself, and
They
Jeff,
paid.
we all paid our own. There was no money at all in the budget.
Well,
Because it was to us, it was a tight year, and we didn't ask for any money.
so,
Anyway, what we can do is
So the reason
take what it costs, what we get for nothing, and then we'll divide the rest.
And we have, and the other thing I wanted to point out is because we have the pre-town meeting, we have enough money in there for, at $65 each, is what the Garden News was charging us. We have enough for three special town meetings and one for the annual meeting. So as long as they don't have, like they did one year, they had more money, they had more special town meetings than what we had budgeted for. And this committee had to go to the emergency reserve because we didn't have enough money to pay for the bill. And we were, by law, we have to have a pre-town meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the bylaws. So I bring that up, so we will have to take it, once we come back from the training, we'll have to figure out on how we're going to end up submitting those in.
Yeah.
I think some of us will probably not even ask that they can get reimbursed and just go.
I don't have a problem with paying the 55.
All right, let's move on to the next thing. The next thing is Paul's presentation, everybody, I think he copied everybody on that, I think,
I did, I sent out made a small edit based on your input, Will, and then forwarded that out to the whole team. I did put the request to the chairperson of the Board of Selectmen to get on the agenda. He didn't respond at first, I think he responded directly to you. I did a follow-up and ended up getting some time on 10 minutes on the 10/23 Board of Selectmen meeting. However, I just received a note from Holly saying they're going to have to move the meeting to Tuesday, the 24th,
oh,
and needed to know if I was gonna be able to attend. I can make the 24th, but I wanted to check with the rest of the board members, because I think you all,
okay, because we're gonna actually have to put that up as attending the meeting if there's any discussion at all.
I'm sorry, what do you mean? As far as-
We will have to put up, the advisory committee, attending the Board of Selectmen's meeting,
Yeah,
because if there's any discussion on this at all, on any of us, other than the presenter, that covers us as far as the open meeting law.
so you mean we'd have to get the whole committee on the agenda?
We have to list it, yes, because I was anticipating that it wouldn't be just you as a presenter and maybe one other person. I was saying that.
That's what I thought too, we're all gonna be
Right,
involved.
that's
in it.
why we have to take and put it out, that
Okay.
it would be the advisory committee.
Okay, so, again.
I mean, when did you receive this email?
This afternoon.
Was anybody else copied on it, Paul?
Let me see. I don't believe so. Yep, just to me, from Holly. The board needs to change their meeting to Tuesday, October 24th. Are you available for your requested presentation for the advisory committee? Please let me know ASAP. And I responded that I would let her know after our meeting today.
Okay,
It's all right with me.
I'm out of town next week, so unfortunately I cannot attend.
And I was gonna say, I believe I have a capital planning meeting that
have
night.
a capital planning.
Okay?
So Paul will be there, I'll be there, I don't know, I can't speak for Jeff or Julie,
No.
will you be going?
Yeah.
So if there's three of us and one other individual, we still have to post it as a committee.
Okay. So
Do you need-
what exactly does that mean? What do you mean, post it?
We have to post it that we're gonna be attending the Board of Selectmen's meeting to make a presentation, so that if there's any discussion at all,
On the website, right?
right, it has to be on the website.
calendar? Is that where you do it?
Yes, it'll be
On-
posted on the
Okay.
calendar.
Okay.
Do you need a motion to that effect?
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
so.
I want you to make that as a motion that the advisory committee will attend, all members that can attend to, or something to that effect.
So moved? That
We'll let the scribe figure that one out. Do I-
that the board, the advisory board will be attending the Tuesday's,
At 24th?
October 24th's meeting, will be attending,
Yeah.
so.
And
And that we wish it posted on the calendar.
I'll second it.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Cricket?
Yes.
Bev?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Did you want to go through the presentation? Anybody want to go? Everybody's got it, so did anybody want to go through the presentation?
Been through it a couple of times, but.
We've gone through it a couple times already,
No,
so,
I think it's good.
okay.
We're good. You did
We
the
won't
job.
spend the time on that then. Okay. He has some other agenda items which I don't have can you call up the agenda, somebody? I don't wanna make sure I don't miss it.
The other item on here there was the bylaw change, and then old business, open issues, new business.
Okay. Let me end up getting what was handed to me. Or we received an email. This is the latest version of the bylaw.
This is a town meeting warrant,
Yes,
not a
Well-
bylaw.
the warrant. Excuse me.
Yep.
And I will be pointing out some stuff also. Here's some additional information that was in the box concerning town meeting. As you can see, it was changed the 16th to the 17th. I think the thing that Jeff wanted to take and bring up was, let's see which article it is. It doesn't have a number. It looks like Article 16. And this is concerning the advisory committee. I think he wanted to have some discussion on that. I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but I think he wanted to point out the fact that this bylaw change is changed. They want to take and end up changing it. It reduces the amount of people on. It says that they have other entities that will be appointing members on. And I think either Bob or Paul can end up talking to the fact about that, just to take and give us some information as to what you had at the workshop.
Do you wanna go, Paul, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Basically, what I got out of the workshop meeting related to how they're gonna appoint members is that there's gonna be one member from the Board of Selectmen, and the other members are gonna be appointed by the managers of the town light and water sewer enterprise, school committee, and Board of Assessors, and one member from the moderator. Each one of those entities will be appointing an individual. Now, this is a work in progress, and that's kind of how it was stated at the time. But some of the issues that were brought up is, as far as how is this gonna happen, that people are gonna have to, apply to each individual entity. Those entities can, place you on. If they don't have an appropriate applicant, they can just choose somebody.
Sounds
And that seems to be, from what I gathered on that seems to almost be the first choice, to be able to choose the person that they see as being fit. If not, go to the applicant pool. The rationale for this was presented as the moderator doesn't really know anybody, and at the town meeting, and they used the example of the last one, that the moderator got 3 applications, and his only method to choose was the order in which they came in. It wasn't by, any criteria or anything, it was just the order in which he received them is how he chose them.
So what's gonna be different with this other way?
This in essence, is section 8, I believe. Well, they got 9A. Boy, for a draft, this has got a lot of problems in it. It basically says that December 30th of 2007, this committee is basically disbanded as it now sits, whether you've been appointed or not. I mean, I don't wanna take and end up having any discussion, I wanna take and just point that out. We will end up having a further discussion, at the pre-town meeting as to what our feelings were. But I would end up looking at this particular draft as to what's on there. Or does that mean that the select board will end up having this as the final warrant for the special town meeting? I don't know. The schedule calls for them to end up voting on the 23rd, which would now be the 24th. They would end up voting on this draft. And it was supposed to be, as if they voted on the 23rd, Holly was supposed to, and this is their document, not ours, would be sending it to the advisory committee on the 24th for us to take and end up looking at. Jeff and I were saying if we're gonna end up getting it on the 24th, it might make sense to take and end up having a meeting before the pre-town meeting, just to go through a reading of what the final version is before, and people can sit, we read it, we don't end up discussing it in any level of detail, but we end up creating questions that we would have at pre-town, and at pre-town, those are the questions that we would have. If somebody comes, that's the questions that we would ask. If nobody comes, those questions will be presented at our pre-town by this board, and we can vote on what information has been provided us at that particular time.
Well, doesn't it kind of defeat the purpose to have a pre-town meeting and have changes made afterwards?
That's what?
They're talking about making changes after the pre-town meeting, is that what you're saying?
No.
Is that, no?
I'm
Okay.
saying that on the next, they were supposed to take it, and this is a draft.
Okay,
They were supposed to finalize this draft according to their schedule on the 23rd.
okay,
As you heard
yeah,
Paul say, they had to move the meeting to the 24th. I presume they're going to finalize this on the 24th.
24th.
Holly was supposed to send it to us on the 24th after they had finished this on the 23rd.
Right, so it'll be the 25th most likely before she'll send it.
We will probably get it on the 25th.
Yeah.
Disseminate it and just at least go through what we have before we end up going to pre-town meeting.
One of the things on this article, they had to verify with town council was, were there any issues with the school committee being a regional board, regional committee, would they be any issue with them, coming up with an appointee for the Templeton Advisory Committee? So that was something they were gonna follow up on. I don't know what the outcome of that will be.
And the whole thing would have to be approved by the Attorney General anyway.
Right. But, so there may be some additional modifications to this, and
Yeah.
as Bob was saying, we asked them, what were the logistics, how was it gonna work? And at first they said, if I'm interested, I have to submit a letter of interest to 5 different boards. And they said, oh, well, well, no, maybe it makes sense to just have a pool. And then we discussed, isn't this going to discourage people from coming forward? Right now, it seems to, be difficult to get people to volunteer for.
For
Yep.
years.
Some of the committees
They've
did.
had difficulty.
And, and this seems like it's making it more complicated and, a difficult process, especially if you have to go to 5 boards, so.
Well, not only that, but,
You have the chicken.
well, you've got, I'm sorry, section 1, in my opinion, opens it up for gamesmanship and things, because you've got people who are, I'm not saying anybody would, I'm just saying it just opens up the possibility that, oh, I know Joe Schmo over here,
Sure.
right? He's a buddy, he's a pal, he's going to we'll put his name forward because he'll do whatever it is we want him to do.
Right.
That's right.
As opposed to the moderator, it's one person who doesn't have,
Agenda.
shouldn't have any kind of agenda.
Right.
Right.
Almost every town has the moderator do this job.
Not every town.
Most
No.
of
There
them.
is,
Most
there
of
is
them.
one or two towns that the Board of Selectmen, along with the
Yeah.
moderator, appoint.
Yeah,
Ah.
and they did use,
Littleton.
they did mention Littleton was the model behind this one.
Right.
Littleton does the same
A
thing.
vast majority of the communities in Massachusetts have the moderator appoint. I mean, we could go through this.
Yeah.
I guess I guess the question is, why would they want to go against what the current tide is for towns and moderators? But, putting an auditor's type of hat on, which, I've worked with auditing companies, I'm not an auditor, but working with them, they, segregation of duties and everything, this would fly against Sarbanes-Oxley segregation of
Well-
duties to do that.
Here, I'll throw this out as a question. Please don't answer it, though.
Okay.
Members of this committee have pointed out deficiencies in the operation of the Board of Selectmen and the administrator. What's the easiest way to resolve that?
So long, sweetheart, it's been good to see you.
Yeah, in terms of what the motivation is behind it, I think we all have our opinions. I've talked with friends and neighbors, told them about this article that's gonna be in the special town meeting, and that's, of course, their first impression. They're just trying to appoint people who rubber stamp whatever they, whatever agenda that they have, so. So that's a real perception issue I think they have to deal with here. I asked the question, isn't that gonna be a perception issue? Because, today it's the moderator. Moderator is supposed to be, completely objective.
Yep.
We're
Now
supposed
you've
to
got the
be
boards and the
objective.
committees that are making these appointments, and aren't their appointees going to be beholding to, those boards and committees, so.
And what happens if you don't do what you're supposed to?
We never get into the discussion of what's, can be removed for cause, and.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is, what is determined as being
Yeah,
cause?
exactly.
There's, and the fact that if this language were used throughout every single committee,
Committee, exactly.
that would be a different story
Right.
as opposed to what's happening here.
And we were specifically told that it wouldn't be. That
Um,
language would not be used
Right.
for other
It was only gonna be
committees.
used in this,
Let me just say
People are
this.
smart.
Jeff
They'll figure it
Jeff
out.
wanted us to take an end up looking at this, making sure we read this.
Yeah.
Come pre-town meeting, we will discuss it, and it's either an up or down motion. But I think his intent was also to end up having each individual member come forth with the reasons, good or bad, and what
There's
the
nothing
impact
in
is to
any-
the community.
There is nothing in any of the bylaws, any place I've ever seen in town meeting where they're allowed to ask those questions. There's no place that says they, a couple of years ago, folks were specifically asked who voted which way and why, by
Oh,
the
yeah.
selectmen.
Columbus.
And there's no place in it that I could see where that was allowable,
Yeah.
but
and some
maybe
of
I
the-
missed something.
So some of the things I've heard in the past, I think it was one of the select board members said that we're not supposed to be the watchdogs, that we're supposed to be advisors, and I went to the Guide to the Financial Management that the DLS has
Yep.
website, and it was funny, very first sentence, the Advisory Committee, Finance Committee is the official fiscal watchdog for a town.
That's right.
I mean,
And
It can't be
another-
more clear than that.
Another statement is,
I don't know.
right in the selectmen's handbook, it says that the advisory or finance is the watchdog for financial issues.
And we're
I
supposed
mean,
to be
it's clear,
objective.
and clear across the board in all communities, that's what our job is, to ask the hard questions.
There's a presumption and an assumption there that everybody has read the documentation.
Yes.
And that not necessary, I cannot say one way or the other, if someone has or hasn't. If they haven't, then they probably should. And if they have, maybe they need to read it again.
It's, even one of the selectmen have said that we're not the watchdog.
Well,
Well, they.
And he's
Correct.
he's a selectman, and he's got the handbook.
then whomever that was, based on here, is incorrect. There's no other way of putting it.
I got that message a couple years ago that we were supposed to, the advisory board was supposed to go along with the selectmen in public. And I'm not gonna argue with them, but if I don't agree with something, I'm working for those people in town, all of them. And if, in my judgment, I don't think something's right, I am not going along
Right.
to go along. Because this is what has gotten the town in trouble. We've had advisory boards that were very, very good. We had a lot of really bad ones. And you are not helping your community, you're not helping anyone if you don't do your job. And doing your job is a hard job. You're gonna have to make decisions that hurt. And not everybody's gonna be happy with you. But we only advise. They don't have to like us, they don't have to love us. Well, God damn it, they can respect us.
Well, one of the things is, as far as the watchdog thing, is that when you get that type of comment from a selectman, he obviously hasn't read his handbook, number one. Number two, for a selectman to take and end up saying is, in public, get along, even if you don't agree, in public, get along, is way out of line. I mean, I don't wanna take and end up saying what I really wanna say, because the individual made that statement. It's just, it's way out of line. You don't, that's not the job of this committee, is to take and end up agreeing with everything in public, even though we disagree.
We won't have a democracy.
There just needs to be healthy discussions.
Yeah.
Let everybody know
They
the
make-
opinions, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, and we just have to do the best we can.
Do you know, one good thing that we have done is we have found errors that have helped. Because if you miss something and you go along for 6 months and you carry that error along, it's real hard to go back and find out what went wrong.
Right.
But Julie finds stuff all the time, and it's not being, I found something. It's, no, here, I think there's something wrong, check it out.
Well, one of the things is
And it's
financially
just an error.
responsible is that we have looked at the budget to actual and found out mistakes.
Yeah, that's what I just
We
said.
have fed that back to the administrator and the accountant. In some cases, it's,
Yeah, she typed something in
it's,
wrong.
oh, okay, well, the auditor said that we can end up correcting this and this. Oh, well, okay, we pointed it out, and there's a method to take and correct an issue. Whether or not the auditor did, we don't have visibility to, because they don't give us visibility to that, but at least something from this committee pointed out something that was wrong financially.
Yeah, and it got fixed, because if you drag this on, it can create horrible problems down the road. I'd like to see a plan for the future, because one of the articles in this thing is to buy a furnace, and I have questions about that, but we'll get to it then.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna take and end up leaving it there.
Yeah.
We can have a discussion. My first thing is do people wanna meet after we receive the final warrant,
Sure,
before pre-town?
Yes.
yep.
And
Yes.
Freetown is the
First.
The first.
first.
If that's what we wanna do, I'll entertain a motion to take and end up doing that. If we have it on the 25th, we can probably end up meeting that Thursday. But that's gonna have to put that as an agenda to take and end up reading of the warrant.
Yeah.
Meeting on Thursday would
Either,
be,
either the Wednesday or Thursday, and that's, I'm leaving that up to the committee members as to what they wanna end up doing. That's a Wednesday or Thursday,
I don't care, either one.
because now you're talking about we're gonna be meeting on Tuesday instead of Monday with the selectmen, just for that presentation.
I wonder if that changes my meeting. And it was just changed to Monday at 5:30.
We wouldn't have the final,
so wanna shoot for the,
So do you need a motion?
I'm looking for one
All
with
right.
as to which day, which day people wanna meet. And it sounds like everybody wants to meet, but we'll have a formal motion as to what day or whatever, or either day, depending on when we receive it. I'll leave that up to everybody.
How
I mean,
about, I'll make a motion that we meet on Wednesday, the 24th, is it?
25th?
25th, Wednesday, the 25th, to read the
Final,
final version of the town warrant.
okay.
and if it's not received on the 25th,
If it's not received in a timely fashion, we'll meet on the 26th.
okay.
Wanna set it for the 26th then, and,
Want to just set up for the 26th?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
It's all right with me.
Okay, so I'll amend the motion to meet on Thursday, the 26th at 6 o'clock to read the town warrant.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll give Paul a chance if they can catch up to us.
Fingers are flying.
I'm
Use
good,
more than 2 fingers.
my 2 fingers, yeah.
You know, I have to take and end up commenting on this. You do an excellent job of sitting here and taking notes. It was beyond my expectations as to having you sit there. I thought you'd be just taking notes, but you're doing an excellent job right during the meeting.
Well,
He's
thank you.
smart, he
It's-
doesn't have to do them all over.
It's
Was-
not I'm not a touch typist, it's more of a search and destroy style, but.
Okay,
it
are
gets
we
it
ready?
done.
Yep.
Yes,
Cricket,
yes.
Bev,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Okay,
And that was seconded by you, Bev, right?
Yep. Yep.
just pointing out something.
Good night, sweetheart. Time to go home.
I've already got a draft of the notice of pre-town meeting that will be in the paper on the 28th. It says the Templeton Advisory will hold a pre-town meeting on Wednesday, November 2nd at 7 o'clock in the Town Hall Meeting Room on 160 Patriots Road, East Templeton, Mass, to discuss and vote recommendations on the warrant articles of the, I typed it up right, but I must have printed the wrong one out. Should be November 14th. I printed
date?
I printed the wrong one, but believe it or not,
I could do that.
okay. And that's for a special town meeting. And I put this out to the paper, because I'll send this to,
Make sure you sent them the right
I'll
one.
send this to Ms. Brito at the Gardner News tomorrow. Make those changes.
Do you have the correct day of the week? And
Yeah, isn't it November 1st?
Wednesday, next Wednesday, is it the first or the second?
Wednesday, the November 1st
Okay, the
is
first.
Wednesday. That's
Okay,
I'm looking at the right calendar.
all right. We'll correct those and have it sent out tomorrow. I just ended up, for whatever reason, I went talking with Jeff, and I know he's been busy, and I just happened to end up checking the advisory emails on the new system today. And let me just read what we got from the administrator. And this falls in line with some discussion that happened at the workshop between an individual and also with us, which I was really surprised. I was glad to end up seeing this gentleman doing that. Good day. A few items for your consideration. Attached is the latest draft of the fall town meeting warrant. It went off to town council for final review early this morning. There's some errors in it, but that's it, went there. The main changes from the one distributed the other evening are the inclusions of language for cable TV in lieu of a placeholder for them and fairly large rewrites for the Fernal land acquisition. It is my hope to get any recommendation changes for inclusion to the final warrant for consideration by the, oh, it does say the 24th, consideration by the Board of Selectmen before they adopt it on 10/24. It changed from the original meeting night, 10/23. I mean, I just printed this off just before I came. So it concurs with what you had gotten. This was sent out this afternoon. Kindly remember the meeting with the Board of Selectmen on 11/6, at which time we will present the FY19 revenue estimates. Given concern over data access, I want to refresh your memory on discussion of the read-only access to the VADAR system. On Wednesday, January 4th, 2017, at 8:49, I advised you at Templeton Advisory Board at gmail.com that this is to follow up on the request that I looked into read-only access into VADAR accounting system. I've come to learn that this additional license would cost us $700 startup fee plus the cost of training, and then $700 or higher thereafter each year. With the town budget constraints at this time, it does not seem that this cost is an option. The finance team and I are here to answer any questions regarding the town finances you might have, and we will do our best to respond to inquiries as quickly as possible. At this time, the AC took no action, nor did it request these monies in its FY18 budget. Well, it was asked after the budget process. We didn't know that there was going to be a cost. I have reached out to VADAR, and they are willing to honor the same price, $700 for the additional license and $1,000 for training. After a discussion with the staff, we believe it is best that you do in fact receive the one-day training from VADAR staff directly in order to ensure you are getting all the items you wish to be able to do and are comfortable you are getting this information unfiltered directly from the vendor. As you know, this is not. That's what it says. As you also know, the draft warrant is now near completion, and I would be reluctant to add this expense to it, particularly given the $700 is an ongoing expense, and the use of free cash would be considered inappropriate for that. At the same time, we believe getting you access sooner rather than later would be everybody's best interest. Do please remember that only one committee member can be viewing the data at the time, but you all share the same username and password. I leave to you whether or not this qualifies as an unforeseen expense, but you may want to consider a transfer from your reserve fund to a purchase of service line an amount of $1,700. We can then include a request for FY19 and beyond for the annual license fee along with the balance of our software support. Let me know and we can get this arranged for you.
Well, who's gonna find out if we're gonna be here or not?
Similar, number 4, similar to number 3, I have forwarded you under separate cover of our check registers that could post online each week. This will require about 6 hours of staff time a year, but seems worthwhile if you think it would be useful to you and the citizenry. Many thanks, Carter Terrazini. And oh, by the way, I did go check to see, Gordon Moore had asked this when he was here, I believe, for a pre-town meeting. And he did respond on January 4th to us and said it was $700 and $700 thereafter. So, and I passed this on to everybody on the 4th. This is an answer to to Gordon's question. So that, and I'll kind of, this was also pointed out to me by a citizen who called me up and said that he felt that we should be talking about getting access. He felt it was strongly that we should have access to this also.
I think it's a good investment, and, you know, if $1,700 the first year, $700 every year after that, I think it's a good investment. It gives us the access to the level of detail that we've always required in order to do the job.
Takes the load off the girls in the finance office.
Yep, and that made me in response to one of the bullet items that we have in the presentation that the package that I sent to him yesterday, so maybe that's why the timing is happening now, that he's reminding us that he did respond to it.
Yeah.
And yes, we did not budget for it at the time, but I think it's worthwhile, and as a matter of fact, I would already come up with a username. We could be fiscal watchdog.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds good to me.
sounds
Well,
good.
the question here is, and this is a two-edged sword, is this unforeseen, and can we take money out of the emergency reserve, number 1? We would have to do that at our next meeting, or subsequently, at some point in time that when we know whether this article on the warrant is passed. I mean, in my estimation, end up going to the emergency reserve to take that money and do that when we don't know whether any of us will be on, or the bylaw will even take effect, or the AG will weigh in on this. I look at this as two things for the warrant article, and it ties in with this $1,700. If the thing passes, and we don't know if it will, and we don't know if it will be on the final warrant, those are all ifs right now in my mind, that if it does go before the special town meeting, if it passes, we'll, as a committee, we will be done on the 30th. Does it make sense to end up
No.
putting something in
Until we know,
till we know?
not until we know. Because I doubt any other advisory board is gonna do what we've done.
No.
I have paperwork at home, and when I gotta find it. Because I had sat down and gone back over the years and seen how many members that each advisory board had.
Yep.
At one time, they even sent notices out to people asking them to come on, and nobody bothered. So, filling these shoes is not an easy task. Getting someone to come to the meeting, even if they're appointed to the meeting, isn't an easy task. So I would not I would not,
Is out, okay.
Just needed to spell it, excuse me.
I wouldn't take the money out unless we know,
Now, if it does pass, number one, it has to go to the AG because this is
that's right.
a bylaw. It usually takes a while before the AG responds. So if we're done on the 30th, according to the bylaw, and the AG has not done anything,
I don't think.
there's going to be a gap.
They won't-
And nothing will be done because they're planning on really submitting a budget or working on the budget. And this is in their schedule in February and March timeframe.
Can you see,
The final budget is supposed to be to us in early April.
can you imagine somebody brand new coming in and even trying to figure out what anything is? That is asinine. That is really, 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 really bad planning. Especially with the new budget coming.
Well, let me put an IT spin on this. That $700 going forward every year is a licensing fee. It's a seat licensing
Yep.
fee.
Yep.
And even if this committee chooses to vote to ask, do do everything else to be able to pay for that licensing fee, there's no guarantee that that license would remain within this committee. That they could then say, oh, it's, $700 and decide that somebody else in another part of
Can use
the
it.
town can use it instead.
Yep.
So that's, and every year or two, things are updated all the time. There's training, that
Yep.
goes on with updates and conversions and.
There's
all,
actually
but,
training for the website also.
And the $1,000, they didn't mention how many people that covered. Is that just, one-time fee? Can we record it? Can we do anything else with it? Because members do change. And so you need to take that into consideration also.
Yep.
And the training could be done, depending upon what it is, what questions we want to ask. There should be some sort of documentation already available that would be able to walk us through that.
Yep.
And the other folks that do have access could be able to show us the few things that are required to be able to get to the detail. And
Well, they're saying that the $1,000 for the training would be what we would end up having to bring the folks from Vadar in to do that.
and I'm suggesting there are other ways that it could be done cheaper.
Probably, you're right.
But they're only giving us one username for
Which-
everybody.
Right, but that's fine, I mean, that's all
That's
we
fine.
really need, you know.
Well, there's also a fallacy in the one username, and the fact that even though if it's read-only access, all right, that kind of limits it a little bit, but then if you have 7 people who have read-only access, and there's a log saying what accounts you access, I would presume there is, for any decent software, you would have that, then if somebody was looking at something that they shouldn't be looking at, I don't know what it would be, but if somebody was, then 7 people are on the hook for that access. I personally would not want the access. I wouldn't want to know the login because I would not want to be held accountable. Nothing against anybody else, but I
Yeah.
don't want to be held accountable for somebody else's
Because
actions.
you know
Well, this
what?
would be
There
just
would
to
be other-
taking together.
But there would be other people out of this room that could find that access too.
This would only just to be to take it, end up going into the different accounts for the different departments and get the information that's only pertinent to what we want is a read-only. I mean, I'm not, Vadar does not get into as far as I know, into where the treasurer is as far as personal information on individual, the HEPA stuff. That's not on the Vadar.
Something I wouldn't care for
I'm,
either.
So I'm just cautioning that if it were 7 accounts, that only one of those 7 could be accessed at any point in time, then that's okay. But normal IT processes, you wouldn't have 7 people using the same account. That I
But I think that's exactly what he was suggesting.
Yeah.
That was perfectly okay, you know, as long as he only had the read access, it would, you know. But I mean, again, that's something we could
Yeah.
work out. I hadn't considered all the, the security points that you're bringing up
This
there.
is Mr. Digital.
But again, that's something that we could work out,
Yeah.
you know, within the committee too, is
Yeah.
to, maybe we designate one person who's just
Yeah.
gonna be that
Yeah.
Vadar, you know, expert and only interface, but, and as far as it being an unforeseen expense, we had no knowledge at the time that
No.
we
Right.
were gonna lose the access to the detail information that
Right.
we had before. We always considered that we were gonna get the same reports that we'd received
You're
in
right.
prior years, so.
You know,
So it is unforeseen, and I think is justified in using the
Okay.
emergency
the
fund.
thing is, any citizen that walks in this door, in that door, should be able to get the information that we ask for.
That's true.
So why create this big problem by making everything difficult? And that's all it is. There was no need of it at all. It's created a problem. And, you know, there was something on an email that they sent saying something about having another account. No, everything that every account that belongs to the town should be open for every citizen of the town. There should be, like Markle, when he said he hid money in the annual town meeting budget. Why would you do that, you know?
Yeah.
It's very, very bad policy, because if people don't feel they can trust their town authorities, we're all in trouble.
I think what we need to do is to take and end up waiting to see where we are
Yeah, I
before
think
we
so. I would do that.
actually go forward with anything as far as access to
See how
Vadar.
this shakes out. I can't imagine having the fox in the chicken coop. It just doesn't make any
And
sense.
it's- I can't predict what we're gonna end up doing, whether we be here as a committee or
I'm not
not.
gonna worry about it. I don't
Okay.
think people will like it, though.
That's actually on the new business. Anything anything else on the new business before I go back to other stuff and give people some information?
Nope.
Okay.
Is that new business or old business?
That was new business, I would think, as
Okay, new
as far as
business.
Vadar and talking about that.
All right.
Well, it could be under either, Paul, because it was brought up some time back.
We were reviewing his email that he had sent, you know, prior, so.
Right, I mean, and it goes way back to January, so I guess you would consider that ongoing.
Okay. I'll leave it there then under old
Okay.
business.
As everybody knows, we got training this weekend. I have made some maps for folks. I'll even give you one, Paul, so you can see where we're going.
You gotta come rescue us.
Might have to
Yes.
rescue the,
Here's the latest schedule for what is gonna be presented. As you can see, the map basically says it's about an hour and 4 minutes, but it actually takes you a little bit longer. The last time that we went down there, it took us about an hour and 15 to an hour and 25 minutes.
It's like going to Foxborough,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, Frank, yeah. It's way down there.
Franklin,
It's,
Before you get to Foxborough.
yeah, it's a little short.
it's about 100, it's about an hour and 15, hour and 20,
yeah, to get there, yeah.
yeah.
I would recommend that if you're gonna go, that by 7:15, that you leave, just in case of traffic, that way there, you're getting there around 8:30, 20 minutes of 9. Why do I say that? Is that you would end up getting there and doing your registration, doing some network, and getting the breakfast that's there prior to the welcoming speech and the keynote speaker. At that particular time, when we get there, people can end up choosing the, if you choose what ones you wanna end up going to, we can end up dividing that up from the folks that are gonna be going. So the key things is, when you get there, you pay for your registration. You end up getting the breakfast and sitting down. We either sit down as a group, or I've sat with other folks from other communities and got feedback on some things that we have issues with, and they go, "You gotta be kidding me." I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, wait till you.
So there's the keynote, there's a budgeting 101 for new members. There's the social, open, and public, how to blog, tweet, and share within the requirements of public records and open meeting law. There's an attorney based on that one also, that's gonna be one of the people in that session. Managing your town's credit and bond rating. Health insurance trends, other post-employment benefits, and GASB 45. That's the accounting system. So you have some very knowledgeable people in the morning. Then in the afternoon, after lunch, capital planning, buying the big stuff. I know who's gonna wanna attend that one.
Yeah.
Finance committee potpourri, that's a whole bunch of stuff under that as the sharing. There's also a town council from Arlington, another lawyer that's there, that they can end up helping people. You get, as you can see, there's deputy town administrators from Franklin there, there's lawyers there, there's the directors from the council, and how to make sharing and regionalization service work for you. Some very good sessions here. And if you go to the MMA website, as I've pointed out in the past, you can end up going to where it says finance committees, and they have the presentations from last year. You can actually go in and look at those presentations. And you'll see that there were some real good things from last year. I mean, some of the things that we have brought back as members have come out of these training sessions. It's not something that we've designed per se. And it's not something that we bring forward and are lying about. This is what happens in other communities.
So did you register us?
I put everybody in.
Okay.
Awesome.
You should have all got emails back. I know I got it, Bob got it, because I put everybody's emails in the day I registered everybody.
I don't know, maybe it's there and I never looked.
It says from
I get
MMA.
swamped with them. I'll have to look.
And of course, there's the map to get there, so.
Yeah. I get swamped. Sometimes I don't even look at them. Pat lets me know if there's something worth looking at. I just can't hack it.
So I just do my commute and a little bit more.
Do you wanna ride down with me?
I was gonna say, I can drive. I can drive, because I do this commute almost every day,
Yeah.
down to at least Hopkinton.
Oh, wow.
So I do Route 2, 495 south, and to Hopkinton, if I can say that tonight.
You probably go
It's an hour.
you get onto 170 and 117?
No, I do 2, 495,
Oh,
because it moves very nicely, and,
on the weekends, going down 117, it's a lot quicker, you cut off a lot of miles.
you cut mileage, but not necessarily time. It comes out to about the same amount of time.
Yeah, because going through Bolton Flats flats, if you hit it the wrong time during the week, everybody's trying to get through Bolton to get onto 495 and go up and down. You're absolutely right, because I did that commute to Marlboro
Yeah,
for a number of years.
I've been doing it for 9, so. Looking, going, oh yeah, I know where that is.
Terrible.
I would recommend after the meeting that everybody get together as to, how to take and end up traveling,
Yeah.
is to take and end up carpooling down there. It saves on a number of 6 or 7 people all going down there in individual cars.
Okay, I think that's about it.
Is there anything else on their old business?
No.
Anything else on the new business? As I said, the 24th, the advisory will make the presentation. Paul will be making that presentation if we're there. On the 26th, we'll end up having a meeting, just the reading of the warrant, and people can jot down their questions before the pre-town meeting. The pre-town meeting is the following Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Next Thursday is at 6 o'clock. The selectmen's meeting is next Tuesday at 6:30, I imagine.
Somebody better send me a schedule.
And then say the November 14th for, the special town meeting. That's in the evening.
Too many dates.
And once we have the pre-town meeting, 2 weeks late, or we could decide whether we wanna meet the week after or have our regular scheduled meeting 2 weeks later, which would be November 15th. Okay? So those are some dates that people should be just jotting down for attendance or whatever. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yep.
I-
To adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
I have a motion to, and I'm gonna have a roll call, that way there. That way we don't have Bennett to say no. Cricket, to adjourn.
Yes.
Bev,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
and I say yes.
Cricket.